Peace. This is Mark Winston Griffith reporting from Philadelphia at the Democratic National Convention, reporting for Free Speech TV. And I'm here with Valerie Ervin. Valerie Ervin is a Bernie delegate, just like me, as well as a special advisor to the Working Families Party, otherwise known as the WFP. So we're going to be talking to Valerie today about the Working Families Party and its role in the Bernie Sanders race and in the future revolution. First of all, thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Because what we're going to talk about, I think, will help connect some of the dots for people who are wondering about what the next step is in this revolution, right? We're coming off of a convention where there was huge disappointment. And once the dust is settled, the question is, okay, where do we go from here? So let's start with the Working Families Party, right? Because people hear Working Families Party. So they have in mind it's a political party, and yet you're working with the Democrats. Explain what the WFP is and what your connection is to the Democratic Party, but more specifically to the Bernie campaign.
That's such a great question. I get asked this a lot. Well, the WFP, the Working Families Party, is actually a party in only 3 states, but we exist as a membership base in all 50 states, and we're actually building organizations in 13 states. So we're creating a brand under the tent of the Democratic Party, and essentially our role is to move the party to the left. Ultimately, we would like to become a national party, and we're actually working on that right now. And so in the states where there is no party, some of those states are our strongest presence. And what we're creating in those states is just a lot of members, and we're acting up a lot around the issues that we care about most. And the WFP works on issues, and we try to work on electoralizing issues that people on the left, progressives, care about. So for example, the Fight for 15, we were there at the very beginning of the Fight for 15 when it was like the Fight for 950. And then it became a Fight for 12, and now it's the Fight for 15, and we're like engaged all across the country in city councils and state legislatures. We run a year-round canvass in all of the states that I've been talking about, and our job there is to raise people's consciousness around this issue and what we're going to do to fight for 15. Like just recently in Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser worked with us to pass that law, and we've worked with people all over the country. So that's just one example of how we believe that our role now with the Bernie Revolution is to become very serious about how we organize in states and cities and municipalities and counties across this country. What we have seen here is that the Bernie revolutionaries, I call them, are the best organizers in the country. And so we want to engage with them because what the WFP brings is structure, and it brings organization. And it brings people who can go out and do the kind of work that we're all talking about. So our job here is to engage and align ourselves more directly with the revolution, because we know what happened in Occupy. Occupy raised the sort of consciousness around the 1%, and then Occupy died, and it died for many reasons. And so we think that if we are able to work more closely and directly with the revolution on the issues that we all care about, and then elect progressives in a pipeline. And when I say pipeline, I mean the pipeline starts at the grassroots level. So we're trying to elect school board members, city council members, state legislature members, and on up. And so we're developing this pipeline. It's been very successful in New York, which is why we have a big progressive presence on the New York City Council, and Bill de Blasio ran on the WFP line. So New York is an example of what we're trying to build across the country.
And just so you know, that's how I got here. That is, the WFP asked me to be a delegate, and that was my pathway to the first and probably the last convention I will probably ever get to. Well, we don't know about it. We'll see about that. So you've done a great job of bringing us up to this point. I know you were on a panel earlier today where you talked about the future of this revolution. Please give us an idea of the kind of, I mean, spoken to it a little bit already, but how the WFP will help begin to build the infrastructure for this revolution. What do you see going forward? When people think about, I've already been in rooms where people are talking about the organization and what it's going to look like. What is your vision, and what is WFP's vision for what this revolution is going to look like over the next few years and the kind of impact it will make?
Well, first of all, I think it's been very clear that what Bernie Sanders did was created a movement and a lot of new leaders that are now national leaders like Nina Turner and Ben Jealous and so many people like them who brought with them fire and passion. What we need to do now is turn that into more practical concerns, like how do we go into a city or a state or a county and build what's been there now from the Bernie Revolution and create something solid. So I, for example, work at the WFP and I go into states and I help to set up tables of progressive organizations, some unions, some individuals, because we all know that it requires resources to win. And we're going to be about winning. We're going to be winning lots of fights across the country. So what the WFP is going to do, we raise C4 money, political money. We're able to go into states. We're able to hire canvas staff. We're able to bring on a state director whose job it is to sort of begin to build infrastructure. This is the real hard work of building a revolution. And I think that we're down for that. You know about it in New York, you know about it probably in Connecticut and in Portland, Oregon, and other places in Oregon. We are now in 13 states. Wisconsin just came on recently. New Mexico just came on recently. We have Maryland, Pennsylvania. I mean, I can go on. So it's 13 states and growing. So we have set up infrastructure in all those states, and we have built tables of people who look like me. I'm an African-American woman. I talked a little bit about how in the beginning of the Bernie Revolution, there was no intersection between race and class. And we need to do better about bringing all of our brothers and sisters together in this movement and in this moment.
I've been talking with other activists of color who've had a real critique about the white left, and particularly the sort of the approach that we feel that many of the white Bernie delegates have taken here. And there's been, I think, a little bit of a cultural dissonance between the two. Could you just speak to how does, I think, the Bernie revolution and the left start to address these divisions? Because there are many spaces I'm in with white leftists that I don't feel comfortable. I feel the privilege oozing, out of the walls. And it's even just hard to address it and bring it up in any kind of substantive way. So just some of your thoughts on how do we begin to address that going forward?
I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that question, because that's at the crux of a lot of what's going on right now, because there is tension. There is tension between the sort of white left and African Americans and other people of color inside this movement. And I think it does stem from a lot of privilege. Many of our brothers and sisters who are white and privileged have no clue about how we live our lives in this country as under this brown and black skin that we have. And I think it's going to take some time to teach them, right, and for them to experience what we experience in this world. And so it's kind of like a very interesting thing, because I came to Bernie over time. I did not come to Bernie immediately. And it was because of his class analysis that was not tied to a racial analysis. He got there.
Right.
Okay, and as he got there, I got there with him.
Right.
And so I believe that we are surrogates in our communities, because people would always ask me, how could you be with Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
And when I began to describe why this conversation that Bernie's brought us to is going to get us to the place we all need to be. So inside WFP, as you know, the organization, it had a critique about being too white and too male.
Right.
And over the last 3 years that I've been there, we've created a People of Color Caucus, which I run. We've recruited many, many talented people of color, young people. Most of our state directors are women of color. And so when people see us, they can't believe it's us. But this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to engage in some really difficult conversations with people, which I think that the progressive end of the party should be open to and ready for. This is why we have to, engage in the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter is not an organization, it's a movement. And it has elevated these concerns and these issues. Everybody in America knows what Black Lives Matter is. And we want to make the Bernie Revolution like ubiquitous too, the WFP the same. So we're going to, I've been an organizer my whole life, and I am so thrilled that I got to be here in this moment. And there are so many young people that we're going to be passing the torch to, but what they need us to do is provide them with the infrastructure and the training and the resources that they need to continue this revolution forward.
Well, those are great words, and I really appreciate your insight and your candor. And obviously, we've shared some experiences, so this connection and the fact that we're talking here, I think, is really fortuitous. So thank you so much, Valerie, for having this conversation with us, for trekking over here for this interview. It's really appreciated.
Well, it's going to be an important thing for people to hear, and I'm so glad that you do what you do in the world. So thank you for inviting me.